Board of Education meeting to order. This evening, we have the honor and privilege to have members of our Richmond Middle School National Honor Society with us. And if I could have those ladies please come forward. I'm going to have them come up here and I'm going to introduce them all individually so all of you get to know who these ladies are. I'm going to start first. We're going to have Mrs. Kyle Bartels is going to come up and join them. She is their advisor, and they really wanted her. They wanted her to be up here with them to say the pledge. We have with us this evening Ashley Anderson, Samantha Brewer, Kira Brunel, Izzy Ferrante, Shannon Gaffney, Emily Gore, Amanda Green, Emily Kultz, Jessie Melton, Ashley Prisball, and Tiffany Ryan. Okay, if we could all please rise for the pledge. And ladies, when you're ready, we're ready.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent. Thank you, ladies. Good job. Okay, next we'll have roll call. Dan?
Andy? Here. Margaret?
Here.
Tracy?
Here.
Jeff? Rob? Here. Bridget? Here. Dan? And I'm here. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next is approval of the agenda. We have one change. Item number 11, closed session. We are not in need of a closed session this evening. So number 12 will now become, we will not need items 11 or 12, I'm sorry. So number 13 will become number 12, which will be adjournment. So I will need a motion for approval of the agenda as amended.
13
Adjournment.
from 11.
11,
13 to
I
11.
think. Oh, 10 will become 11. I mean, 13 will become 11. Yes, thanks, Rob. There we go.
Motion to approve as amended.
Second. It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is our True Blue Moments. First up is Lee Elementary, Mr. Berkmeyer.
A couple highlights from Lee Elementary. Last Wednesday we had a great PLC day. We had a speaker come in from Scholastic who did a presentation titled ELLs, or English Language Learners, Reaching Every Learner. Not only did they give us some background on English language learners, but some techniques and strategies that we could use for struggling readers. And we finished the day with the short training on food allergies, and the staff had a demonstration on using EpiPens. We've also had the book fair all last week, which was an amazing time. Hopefully you had an opportunity to stop by, but it was really shown on last Thursday evening with the Fall Festival, which I'd really like to thank our PTO for putting together. It was an amazing event with lots of fun activities for adults and children, and really showcased all the great things that take place at Lee Elementary.
Thank you. Next, middle school, Mr. Bartels.
Thank you. To highlight a few things in middle school since the last time we met, our middle school sports have concluded, and open gyms and such are underway for the next seasons. Dr. Marianne Schrock from the ISD came out and finished our helping us align our 5-8 curriculum for mathematics. She's a MISD mathematics expert, and it was our 5th full day of professional development. Last year we did 4, and we just finished our 5th and final one. We had a Adolescent Accelerated Reading Initiative, the AARI, learning lab last week. Mrs. Schomer and Mrs. Bartels hosted it for the county, and there were 14 future coaches and schools that are interested in running the program coming out and watching those two run through the ISD through those two teachers. They've chosen Michelle Schomer and Kyle Bartels to be coaches. For next year, they have to go through one more year of training. We as well finished a PLC last week and staff meeting, and excellent days. Went to NWA data, adjusting our instruction to where our kids are, and Atlas curriculum alignment, making sure we're teaching what we're supposed to be teaching. On the student front, we had Spirit Days last week in conjunction with the high school. We didn't do the same days, but we did Spirit Days each day. We haven't always been able to do that because October usually means MEEP, and we didn't want a lot of distraction during MEEP week or that MEEP window. But with the MEEP being moved to the spring, we were able to have Spirit Days, and it was a great week last week. And we had a pep assembly and introduced all our fall athletes, and we'll do another pep assembly for our other athletes as well as introducing National Honor Society members and such. The high school band came over and played their halftime routine. Mr. Benoit and Mr. Plarge emceed and did a very nice job. And we attempted to teach the middle school the fight song and getting them started early. This Friday is the end of the market period. Hard to believe that we're a quarter of the way done. We have conferences next week. We have our PTA book fair next week. And our 6th annual active duty and Veterans Day ceremony will be on Veterans Day this year, Tuesday the 11th. Okay.
Thank you.
Sean?
Good evening. The high school has finally finished all of its NWEA testing. We too last Wednesday during our PLC went through the student data, again, to change our instruction or to better build our instruction to meet our students. Our English teachers and our math teachers will be working with our students this week to set goals for the NWEA. The point is we will then have them set goals. We will look at those goals after the second and then after the third. They will be also, when we have conferences next week, we will be set up in here, our counselors will be, to share that NWEA data with the parents. So we've been doing a lot in that area right now at the high school. Conferences are next week on Wednesday and Thursday. Because the high school is hosting the district volleyball, we will not be down in the gym area. We will be down the main hallway in here, and our 100 and 200 hallways, we have a letter that will be going out with a map just showing the parents where things are at. And then the counselors will be in here, as I explained before, sharing our NWEA data. And Mr. Benoit gets to do our school stuff.
Thank you. Mr. Benoit?
Thank you very much. Very busy and exciting week this past week with the first edition of the Blue Devils Advocate coming out last week. Thank you to Mr. Murphy and all the students that put that out. You can see it and view it online at bluedevilsadvocate.weebly.com. Also under the direction of Mr. Murphy, the Key Club was very busy doing some community service last week at the Lois Wagner Memorial Library and getting helping with the McRest program, which will be housed at Trinity Lutheran again this year. The SAD program under Mr. Delore was also involved last week in the homecoming festivities and their Don't Drink and Drive program. Thank you to him for that. Homecoming Spirit Week went extremely well. Our pep assembly outside at the football stadium was quite spirited, led by Mr. Murphy and his rendition of a song that he made up, which was very good and very spirited. We were treated to Mr. Murphy's skills. believe me. The game went very well. I'd like to commend the students in the stands for their behavior, the way they conducted themselves in a first-class manner. Appreciate all the help that Ms. Michon and Mr. Bordeaux helped with at the game. Mr. Bartels on his with the television. And also like to thank Dr. Ladd and Mrs. Smallwood for all the efforts, and the members of student government for the pep rally and pep assembly. Fall sports are concluding. A special note, the girls cross country have a couple of members. Hannah Tass and Madeline Yake will be have qualified and will be running in the state meet this Saturday at MIS. Also worth noting, Coach Tom Brown, BWAC Cross Country Coach of the Year. So many congratulations to him. And looking forward, we will be hosting some MHSAA events. This Friday, we'll be hosting in a pre-district football game. We'll be entertaining Yale. And next week, we'll be hosting volleyball districts, as Mrs. Michon said. There'll be a Wednesday at 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. And the finals will be on Thursday. Special note to our community that all these events, these MHSA events, the admission fee is $5. There are no passes allowed for MHSA events. I just want to make sure we get the word out on that. Many people may have a pass or something they think is they can use for an MHSA event, and unfortunately we can't honor those for MHSA events. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is our public comments. It's the portion of our meeting. If anyone would like to address the board, you can come up, and there should be a card up there. If there's a question that you have that we can answer for you, you can leave a phone number and we can get back with you. Is there anyone that would like to address the board? No? Okay. Next, items of interest from members of the board. Do we have anyone with anything?
Sure. I just want to say I had the opportunity to attend the Fall Festival last week at Lee Elementary, and it was fabulous. I had a really good time. There was a lot of energy going on in that school. Artwork hung up everywhere. The PTO did a marvelous job, and there's just a lot of nice things going on there. So you could just tell by the kids' smiles and their faces that they were proud of their work was displayed, and it was a really good time. So thanks to the PTO, they're doing an amazing job, and it's a great time.
Excellent. Anyone else?
Yeah, I guess, I don't know if I can speak for everybody here, but when we all signed up for this, I think most of us would agree it's way more than what we thought it would be as far as the commitment comes. And I'm a little disappointed in some of us in their lack of commitment. We all voted to hire Brian, and I think we owe it to him that when meetings are scheduled, we all attend. It's important come evaluation time that Brian receives a fair evaluation. We have a group of administrators that work very hard, and I think there might be some of us here that don't necessarily put the position of a board member up there on their priority list. It might be penciled in on their calendar, and well, if I don't have anything better to do that day, I'll go to a meeting. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, we move on to committee reports. Our policy committee met on October 13th. We don't actually have a policy committee, but we formed, 3 volunteers, actually, to look at a specific policy. when we met on October 13th. And Tracy is going to give a report on that meeting.
Sure. So Dan and Margaret and myself and Superintendent Walmsley met to have a conversation about our suspension and expulsion policy, which we did. We looked at what our policy says, what the administrative guidelines say, and talked a lot about what our current practice is and whether or not that matches what our policy and administrative guidelines are at. And then had a great discussion, I think, about making some alterations, making some changes in that particular policy, and Superintendent Walmsley is working on that, and we'll get that back to us based on our conversation, and then we will bring it to the full board to have a full board conversation about it soon, I'm guessing, right? Soon.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. We have our Budget and Finance Committee meeting. Jeff is not here. He is supposed to report on the committee meeting. What shall we say, Bridget?
Well, we put over the presentation that we've seen tonight. We also went over our bills. I don't have my, oh, here we go. And then we went over the lawn and snow removal bids. And when we priced it out, it seemed like we were gonna stick. We're gonna stick with what we have.
Yep.
And that was about it.
Any questions? Next, approval of consent agenda items. That will be minutes of meetings, including claims and accounts, personnel report. Do we have closed? Thank you. Okay. Okay, a motion would be in order to approve consent agenda items.
Motion to approve.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We can send those closed meeting minutes back, please. Thank you. Okay, next item. Item 10, administrative items, special services parent advocate. Shirley?
I'm here tonight to nominate Mrs. Randy Blankenship, a parent of one of our preschoolers, to the alternate position of representative to the Parent Advisory Committee at the Macomb Intermediate School District. The Michigan Administrative Rules requires the intermediate school districts to establish an advisory committee of parents of students with disabilities. And the ISD itself asks us to submit the name of an alternate who can be a backup to our current representative, who is Kim Maddows. So tonight I'm asking you to approve Randy Blankenship for that role.
There's a sample resolution.
I move to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve Mrs. Randy Blankenship as a parent alternative representative for the Richmond Community Schools to the Macomb Intermediate School District Parent Advisory Committee as presented in the document.
Second.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Is she here? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. Next is our audit report. Brian?
Tonight, we have the presentation of our audit report for fiscal year 2014. And to begin our presentation is Michael Everard. Michael, it's all yours.
Hello, everybody. As he said, I'm Mike Everard from Yo and Yo. The partner in charge of the job, Mike Frowley, normally presents, but he had a couple things that he couldn't get away from tonight, so I'll be filling in for him. So, just to briefly go over all the stuff that you guys have in front of you. The big packet here is the financial statements. As it was previously mentioned, this was already presented to the Finance Committee in detail, and then this was also gone over with Brian and Vicki also, so this presentation will be considerably less detailed. It'll be more of like an overview. One thing I will point out in the big packet, though, is our opinion is in Section 2, and last year, I think, was the first year of something they called the clarity standards, and basically it was just to make the opinion more clear. So you'll see headings, our report, what is management's responsibility for the financial statements, what is the auditor's responsibility. And then on page 2-3, there's a paragraph for other reporting required by government auditing standards. That's referring you to the single audit, which is the smaller packet that you have. And then the single audit is reporting on your federal dollars. A good summary to go to would be page 9, which is the schedule of findings and question cost. And if there was anything that was bad, I guess, material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, non-compliance, things like that, it would be reported here. You can see this column has all no's, which is a good thing. So, the opinion is a clean opinion, which is an unmodified opinion. It means that the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects. Also, as part of the audit, we have to do procedures to evaluate your internal controls and compliance with grants. We had no material weaknesses noted or instances of non-compliance that we found during the audit. As previously mentioned, the opinion, not really new this year, it actually changed last year, but figured that was worth mentioning again. For the single audit, this year we audited the special education cluster, which is your IDEA, flow-through, and preschool grants. That represented 55% of your federal dollars, and there was no findings or non-compliance noted for those grants. And here's an overview of your funds. The debt retirement funds, we had revenues of about $1.7 million, expenditures of about $1.9 million. So we had a small net loss for the year in the debt retirement funds, and your ending fund balance is $240,000. The capital projects funds, you'll see about $12 million in revenue. That was due to the 2 new bond issuances this year, the 2013 and 14 capital projects funds. So there's still one small issue to come out as part of those projects in the future. So we had revenues from those of about $12 million. Then we started some of those projects. It spent about $2 million. So our ending fund balance is about $9.8 million. That's unspent bond proceeds at the end of the year. Next, for the special revenue funds, we have the cafeteria fund. Revenues were about $400,000. Expenditures were about $425,000, so pretty even there. We ended the year with our fund balance of $92,000. One of the requirements for your fund balance for the cafeteria fund is the state doesn't like you to be building up a fund balance, basically overcharging for lunch and So the requirement is that you should have no more than 3 months average expenditures in that fund. And with this fund balance, you're in no immediate danger of going over that threshold. General fund overview, got a budget and actual column. Revenues were under budget by about $123,000. Expenditures were under budget also by about $200,000. So that nets out to about a $73,000 variance between the budget and actual. And that's about a 0.5% variance based on your $13 million budget. So excellent budgeting there. And then your ending fund balance for the general fund was $1,269,000. The next slide is just a simple breakdown of your general fund revenues by source. You can see about 81% is the foundation grant, which is property taxes and your unrestricted state aid. 6% is federal dollars. Other state would be restricted grants such as at-risk and some of the special ed dollars. That was about 9%. And then other would be other local revenues like athletic admissions, pay-to-play, child care fees, things like that. The next slide is your expenditures by function. You can see 61% makes up instruction, so that's elementary school, middle school, high school, special ed, Title I at-risk. And then all of the other slices except for the other is supporting services. You can see instructional support is about 11%. That's guidance counselors, speech therapists, social workers. Operations and maintenance and transportation was also 11%. So that would be like custodians and bus drivers. Athletics was at 3%. And then administration support was at 13%, which would be superintendents, principals, secretaries. And then the 1% of other is your debt service payments for the year. Next slide is sort of a historical graph of your fund balance as percentage of expenditures for the general fund. You can see that's been steadily increasing. The one thing to note here is the state and group averages. Those are from 2013 because all that data has not been finalized yet for this year. So really the thing to compare is the 2013 amount of 10.77% to the state average as a whole of 9.6. The group average would be similar size schools to Richmond Community Schools. The next graph is also a historical comparison of retirement rates. You can see that's also been steadily increasing. For 2013 and 14, those are weighted average rates. There's a lot of different retirement plans out there with varying percentages. So about the weighted average rate for 2014 was about 28.2%. I'll have a little more on that in a minute.
So I got a question. So for Michael or maybe Brian, do we see that trend staying the same going forward? And why is it at around 28%? Is it just demographics of the age of the workforce here? Or?
Well, in the past several years, the state has shifted the unfunded retirement burden to the school systems, and so they've moved that expense to local school districts for ours.
Yeah.
In order to properly fund it.
In order to properly fund it, yes. And I know Michael's going to talk about it, but it's not even at current rate to fund it for actually what we need in that fund long term. So with that, I see it continuing to go unless there's a different direction in the government in terms of how we fund public schools.
All right, thanks.
The next slide is upcoming accounting changes. This is something we went over last year. This will go into effect for next fiscal year, and that's exactly what Brian was just talking about. GASB 68 What this is going to do is going to push the unfunded pension liability from MIPSers down to all the individual schools. So basically what they do is they take the entire liability at the state level and they apportion that off to all the school districts in Michigan and say you're responsible for that piece. That's going to go on your balance sheet next year. Not the general fund balance sheet, but the statement of net position, the district-wide statement. So what that is going to do is most likely push us into a deficit on the district-wide statements, which is probably the same thing that's going to happen to all the school districts in Michigan, I would think. The estimated proportionate liability using current payroll figures is a ballpark of about $17 million.
That $17 million is Richmond's portion.
Richmond's portion, right. And again, all school districts in Michigan that are in MIPSers are in the same boat. And actually, this would apply to municipalities as well, anybody that would participate in a public employee pension system. Another change for next year, the audit and FID deadline is going to be pushed up to October 15th, which has been November 15th for some time now. That'll be effective for next year. The reason for doing that is I believe the state is wanting more timely reporting of information to help identify what they call early warning indicators for potentially stressed districts. So that'll give them an extra month to go over that. Also, the retirement rate for next year, the rate for the basic MIP with health subsidy is going to go up about 1.1%. So that'll be about a rate of 25.78% total out-of-pocket cost to the district. We've also been receiving an allocation from the state to help subsidize the overall rate. This year that was about 4.56%, which is the 147C payment. Next year that's going to increase, and there's also going to be a 147D allocation. So there's a total retirement subsidy, I guess, of about 8.84% for next year. So the overall total rate for retirement will be about 34.6%. Again, the out-of-pocket cost to the district is about the 25.78%. Another change for the 15-16 fiscal year was what is called the super circular that's coming out. This affects federal grants. The main highlight for that is it's going to raise the single audit threshold from $500,000 to $750,000. So if there was an entity that received under $750,000, they would not need a single audit. So that will not affect us here. What this also does is raise some of our thresholds for some of the grants that we have to test. Currently, the threshold for a major program is $300,000. So if you have a grant that's $300,000 or more that has to be audited at least once every 3 years, that threshold will also raise to $750,000. And that's it for the changes. I'd like to say thank you to the business office. This is a really great audit to work on. There was no significant adjustments that were made during the audit, so that means as a board that you can, have a lot of confidence in the reports that you're receiving. Everybody was really well prepared for the audit. We come and everything's all laid out for us. Everybody in the business office is really helpful, and it was a great audit. So that's all I have. Is there any questions?
Just a couple things. One of the things that I think we have to keep on our radar is to make sure that we remain fiscally solvent. There is pending legislation that several senators have put out there, an early warning system, and some of the criteria they're looking at is how you're using your funds and whether that fund balance is in a decline rather than at least a plateauing, as red flags, if you will, for the state. If you recall, when Buena Vista and Inkster Public Schools collapsed, it was pretty much in June, and they told the neighboring districts in August, you're now getting the new students. It was a PR nightmare from the state perspective, and they don't want to have that happen again. So some of the things they're looking at is these early warning legislations, that they're looking at warning signs of districts. And I think one of the things that I think you should be very proud of is the fiscal responsibility that you've demonstrated to the community. I know it's been hard, and it has come with a lot of conflicts and tough decisions, but for the sake of the organization and the community, I think it's the right move. I also want to give kudos to the business office. When I walked in July 1 and met the auditors in the middle of bond construction, and we were moving around and so forth, you truly have a team in that office that is dedicated to the district and really just pulls together and gets the job done. Vicki, her competency in numbers, I can't say. I'm glad she's with me on the team, I'll be honest with you. So kudos to the business office. And Michelle and Wendy, anything they've asked for, they knew exactly where it was. They were able to pull it up. That's an efficient, organized department. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'll just be politically incorrect, but if Snyder gets reelected, maybe he'll throw another $1 billion in public education. We'll solve all our problems, right?
Right,
Okay, that's my politically incorrect statement. Okay, we'll move on to. Oh, see, I got all carried away in my politically incorrect statement. Okay, there is a resolution to accept the audit report.
I motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and accept the audit report for the fiscal year 2014 from Yale and Yale CPAs and business consultants as presented in the attached documentation.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, contract approval for lawn snow removal services. Brian?
Thank you. In October, we put out a request or an invitation to bid for our lawn service and snow removal services for the upcoming school year. We held several walkthroughs for the vendors so they could understand the scope of the job as well as the what our expectations were. There were 6 vendors that actually came and looked at the project. 4 of them bid. In your packet you have all 4 of them. In looking at the bids for both lawn and snow removal, Dahlia's Landscaping was by far the most cost efficient for the district. They currently do our snow and landscaping removal, or landscaping and snow removal, excuse me. So I'm recommending to go with Dahlia's for the upcoming next 2 years, the 2-year contract.
Excuse me. Okay, there is a sample resolution.
I motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and award a contract to Dahlia's Landscaping and Lawn and Snow Removal Services in the amount specified in the attached bid documents forthwith. Funding from the 2014-15 is authorized, in which funding in the 2015-16 general fund will reflect said contract as presented in the attached documentation.
Support.
Okay, it has been moved and supported. Any discussion?
Yeah, just what a great time to have them do a walkthrough and see what their expectations are after the winter that we had last year with the amount of snow that had to be moved and that.
Okay, I'm going to do a roll call. Dan?
Aye.
Andy?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Bridget? Tracy?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries. Okay, that would be it We are adjourned, 7:43 it looks like.